He stood there, heart pounding, after saying, "My dad works at NASA." The class burst out laughing, mocking him like it was the dumbest thing they'd ever heard. Then came a knock at the door, and the man who walked in made everyone go silent. What happened next? You won't believe it. But first, let's start from the beginning. Jamal Griffin sat at the very back of room 6B, shoulders hunched low, his eyes fixed on the worn-out desk covered in faded graffiti. His fingers traced an old carving, Tyler Rules, a name he'd heard too many times already in just his first week. The classroom buzzed with chatter and nervous laughter as kids took turns standing in front of the whiteboard for career day. Every time someone got up, Jamal's anxiety deepened. His breath came shallow, his palms were sweaty, and his knee bounced under the desk like a metronome stuck in panic mode. They had all gone before him. Sarah's mom was a nurse. Jason's dad was a car dealer. Emily's parents ran a bakery. The teacher, Ms. Patterson, would nod politely, offer a vague compliment, and move on. But even the polite nods stopped when Marcus, a freckled boy with a mop of red curls, said his uncle was a video game designer. That got a genuine smile. "How exciting," Ms. Patterson had said, eyes sparkling. "That sounds like such fun." Jamal knew his turn was coming. He swallowed hard. A boy 2 rows ahead whispered something, and several others laughed. Jamal had spent the entire previous night going over what he would say. Not because it was complicated, but because he knew. He knew the way kids looked at him, the way Ms. Patterson never called on him unless she had to, the way even when he raised his hand, she chose someone else. They didn't see him. Or worse, they saw only what they expected to see. He'd seen it his whole life. Being the only black kid in the room wasn't new, but this school, this suburb, it felt different, colder, tighter around the edges. "All right, Jamal," Ms. Patterson called out with a tight smile. "You're up." He stood, legs trembling just a little, but he straightened himself. He glanced at the class, then quickly looked away. Most of the kids weren't paying attention. Tyler was flicking pencil shavings into his friend's hoodie, and someone was giggling. Still, Jamal cleared his throat. "My dad works at NASA," he said, voice small but clear. "He's a scientist. Aerospace." For one perfect second, silence. Then came the sound. A laugh, sharp and high-pitched. Then another, and another. It spread like fire. Tyler nearly choked. "NASA?" he repeated between wheezes. "What, like, your dad drives the rocket or something?" Someone near the front snorted. "Yeah, right. What's he do? Mops the floors at launch sites?" Even Ms. Patterson gave a faint chuckle before covering her mouth, as if surprised at her own reaction. Jamal's throat tightened. "I'm serious," he muttered. But Tyler wasn't done. "Your dad's a scientist? Man, please, I bet he works at a gas station and told you that to make you feel special." More laughter, louder this time. Jamal could barely breathe. His eyes stung. The room blurred just a little around the edges. Every mocking word burned into his ears. He didn't understand why it always had to be this way, why saying something with pride meant being torn apart, why kids who had never met him decided what he couldn't be. He wanted to disappear. Ms. Patterson clapped her hands once. All right, let's settle down. Jamal, thank you for sharing." Thank you for sharing? That was it? No correction. No, that's inappropriate. No, show some respect. Just a half-hearted attempt to move on. Jamal stared at her, barely blinking. The room was spinning now, not literally, but with the weight of a moment he'd already lived too many times. He sat back down quietly. Nobody looked at him anymore. They had moved on to the next kid. The laughter faded, replaced by talk of construction and tax offices. Inside, Something was folding into itself. He didn't cry. Not here. Not now. He wouldn't give them that. But he hated that he felt small. Hated that he was shrinking inside a chair too big for him in a room that refused to see past his skin. Outside, clouds had begun to gather. He barely noticed. His heart was pounding too hard. And then, a knock. 3 firm taps on the door. The class turned as one. Ms. Patterson looked confused, then walked over to open it. And standing there, dressed in a sleek navy suit and polished shoes, was a tall, confident black man with a trimmed beard, warm brown skin, and a NASA lanyard swaying from his neck. He held a briefcase in one hand, a small laptop bag slung over his shoulder. He stepped in, calm as gravity. "Sorry I'm late," he said, voice deep and composed. "Traffic from Huntsville was a little rough." Jamal blinked, then straightened. His mouth opened in disbelief. "Dad?" he whispered. Dr. Griffin looked at him and smiled softly. "Hey, champ." You could hear a pin drop. No one moved, not even Tyler. Ms. Patterson blinked several times, clearly trying to process what she was seeing. The man standing before her wasn't what anyone expected. His presence was commanding without being loud, precise without being stiff. Everything about him radiated confidence, the kind earned, not flaunted. He extended his hand toward the teacher. "Dr. Howard Griffin," he said with quiet authority. "Jamal's father. I'm here for the presentation." Ms. Patterson hesitated for a beat too long before she finally took his hand. "Oh, of course, yes. Thank you for coming, Dr. Griffin." She stepped aside, flustered. "Please come in." Dr. Griffin walked into the room, each step measured, deliberate. The sunlight caught the NASA badge clipped to his blazer pocket, Langley Research Center, with his name and title printed cleanly below. Several students craned their necks, reading the badge, their mouths beginning to open. He turned and looked at the class. His eyes didn't flinch. "I understand someone questioned my son's statement earlier." Tyler flinched in his seat. A few others shifted uncomfortably. Ms. Patterson's smile froze mid-face. Dr. Griffin didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His tone was steady, his diction precise. "Let me say something before I begin," he said, glancing around. "Kids don't lie when they're proud. They lie when they're scared, ashamed, or taught that their truth will be ridiculed." No one dared interrupt. Jamal stared at his father, awestruck. He hadn't known what to expect. His dad was a brilliant man, but soft-spoken, not flashy, not the type to make scenes, but this wasn't a scene. This was a lesson in grace under pressure. Dr. Griffin walked toward the whiteboard and placed his briefcase on the desk. "When Jamal told you I work at NASA," he continued, "he spoke the truth. I've been working in aerospace engineering for over 17 years. I hold 3 patents in propulsion technology and led a team that contributed directly to the Artemis program, our next manned lunar mission." Gasps whispered through the room like wind through leaves. Tyler blinked hard, clearly stunned. The smirk that had been glued to his face since September had completely vanished. Ms. Patterson clasped her hands, visibly trying to recalibrate her posture. Dr. Griffin reached into his case and pulled out a small tablet. He tapped the screen a few times and held it up to the projector. The screen behind him lit up with a high-resolution blueprint of a spacecraft. "This," he said, "is the propulsion system my team developed for lunar re-entry." Now the class leaned forward. Even the usually bored kids. The blueprint wasn't just a technical drawing. It looked cool, futuristic, real. Every component here had to function flawlessly in conditions most people can't imagine. Temperatures above 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, G-forces that can destroy entire structures. And every design began right here. He pointed to his head. More murmurs. "This isn't fantasy. This is physics, math, Patience, perseverance. He tapped the screen again. A diagram of the moon appeared, then zoomed in on projected landing zones. You've heard of Artemis, right? Our mission to return to the moon and eventually reach Mars? I'm one of hundreds of people making that possible. Silence, but not the kind from before. This was reverent. He turned to the class, slowly scanning the room. You know what most kids say to me when I visit schools like this? His tone remained even, but there was steel beneath the surface. They ask if I really work at NASA, if I really designed these systems, and sometimes, if I really have a son like Jamal. Jamal lowered his eyes. That one hit deep. I don't blame them, Dr. Griffin continued. We're all shaped by what we see, and if you've never seen someone like me in this kind of role, it's easy to assume it isn't possible. He walked closer to the students now. But that's the problem, isn't it? He looked directly at Tyler. The problem isn't that my son believed in me. The problem is that you didn't. Tyler's face flushed bright red. He looked down, ashamed, fingers clenched into fists under the desk. Miss Patterson cleared her throat awkwardly. Dr. Griffin, He raised a hand politely. I'm not here to cause trouble, Ms. Patterson. I'm here to educate. And with that, he began his presentation in earnest. He talked about the challenges of space exploration, the science of gravity assists, the need for resilience when missions fail. But more than that, he spoke of discipline, sacrifice, and believing in things before they're visible. At one point, he played a short video from inside the NASA lab, footage of rockets being tested, engineers cheering after a successful launch. His voice could be heard off-camera, calmly instructing the team. The kids were hooked, especially Jamal. Every moment of that presentation was like salve on a wound. By the time his dad wrapped up, even the loudest kids were silent, eyes wide, jaws slightly open. Dr. Griffin paused. He looked again at Jamal, then back at the class. My son may be quiet, he said softly, but he carries the universe inside his head, and you'd be wise to stop underestimating people just because they don't fit your expectations. With that, he shut down the projector and packed his tablet into the briefcase. The whole room was still processing what had just happened. Ms. Patterson tried to recover, her voice faltering. Thank you, Dr. Griffin. That was incredibly enlightening. He smiled politely but didn't respond. Instead, he walked over to Jamal, placed a hand on his shoulder, and gave him a warm, reassuring nod. You good? He whispered. Jamal nodded, eyes shimmering. The bell rang seconds later, but no one moved. Something had shifted. Not just in the room, in them, in all of them. The bell had rung minutes ago, but no one rushed for the door. For once, the race to the hallway lockers and snack machines didn't matter. Dr. Griffin's words still hung in the air like charged particles, dense, unshakable, electric. Some students stared down at their desks. Others snuck glances at Jamal as if seeing him for the first time, as if they weren't sure whether to apologize or stay silent. Jamal himself was still processing. His dad had always been impressive. But watching him command a room full of kids who just 10 minutes earlier had laughed in his son's face, was something different. It was like watching a storm clear with sunlight pouring through afterward. He felt taller, not physically, but something inside had lifted. Ms. Patterson clapped her hands softly, trying to draw the class back into motion. All right, everyone, let's head to lunch. Let's thank Dr. Griffin once again. A few students mumbled, Thank you. A couple clapped. Tyler didn't say a word. His face was blank. No sarcasm, no bravado, just stunned. Jamal stood slowly, clutching the strap of his backpack. He turned to face his father, unsure of what to say. Dr. Griffin smiled. I'll see you at home, all right? Okay, Jamal whispered. His voice didn't shake this time. As his dad turned and walked out, a few kids followed him with their eyes, as if watching a celebrity leave. Even Ms. Patterson watched him go like she wasn't quite sure what had just happened in her own classroom. Jamal took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway. It felt different. The same scuffed linoleum floors, same faded posters on the wall, but different. He didn't make it 3 steps before someone tapped his shoulder. It was Elijah, a quiet boy who sat in the front row and rarely spoke. Your dad's, like, for real NASA? Jamal nodded. That's crazy, Elijah said, wide-eyed. I thought that stuff was like, only for people on the news or in documentaries. It's real, Jamal said simply. They walked together toward the lunchroom. More kids joined, subtly adjusting how they moved around Jamal. No one bumped into him. No one shoved past. The space around him had changed. Respect, curiosity, even admiration. All unspoken but loud in its own way. Tyler walked behind the group, unusually quiet. His typical posse wasn't making jokes. They looked at him, but not for guidance, for explanation. He had none. By the time they reached the cafeteria, Jamal sat at his usual spot, far end, near the windows. But today he wasn't alone. Elijah stayed, then Anna from the row behind, then Brian. One by one, kids who had never paid attention to him were now nodding, asking questions. What does your dad do when he's not at NASA? Has he met astronauts? Can he get us into space camp? Jamal answered softly, not boastful, just honest. Every word felt like a brick in something he was building inside himself. Confidence, pride, belonging. Halfway through lunch, Tyler stood across the room, tray in hand. He stared at Jamal. He hesitated, then walked over. The table quieted. Hey, Tyler muttered, voice stiff. Jamal looked up. Tyler shifted from foot to foot. I was kinda a jerk earlier. Jamal raised an eyebrow. Tyler looked down. I didn't think you were lying. I mean, I did, but not 'cause of you. Just didn't think someone like you would have a dad like that. Jamal's face stayed neutral, but his chest burned. Someone like you. Tyler realized how it sounded and winced. I didn't mean it like that. I mean, he sighed, frustrated with himself. I guess I did, but that was wrong. He paused. I'm sorry. Silence again. Jamal studied him for a moment. Everyone was watching. It would have been easy to humiliate Tyler, to say something cutting, to make him feel what Jamal had felt that morning. But Jamal didn't. Instead, he gave a small nod. Next time, just ask. Don't assume. Tyler swallowed, then nodded back. Yeah, okay. He walked away, shoulders lower than usual, not defeated, changed. The rest of the lunch period buzzed with excitement. Kids were already telling others what had happened. Phones lit up. Bro, Jamal's dad is literally NASA. He showed us moon blueprints. No, like real ones. Tyler looked like he saw a ghost. Jamal didn't chase the attention. He didn't need to. For the first time since moving here, he felt seen for who he really was. Not just the quiet black kid in the back row, not just the new kid, but a kid whose truth mattered. A kid with pride in his name, his voice, and his family. That day, something broke, and something better took its place. The final bell rang with a sharp clang that echoed down the polished hallways of Jefferson Middle School. Backpacks zipped, lockers slammed, sneakers squeaked across the floor in a rising tide of end-of-day chaos. But for Jamal, everything moved in slow motion. He didn't rush. He packed his bag carefully, deliberately, like someone who had finally learned to take up space. Ms. Patterson approached his desk as the last students filtered out. She looked different now, less certain, more careful in her words. "Jamal," she said, voice lower than usual. "I wanted to say thank you, and tell your father I appreciate his time." Jamal nodded. "I will." She lingered, as if wanting to say more, but not knowing how. Finally, she offered a small smile and stepped back. It wasn't an apology. Not fully, but it was something. Jamal walked through the hallway where he'd spent days feeling invisible. Now, he passed groups of kids who actually looked up when he walked by. Some gave small nods. Others still watched him in silence. Respect isn't loud. It doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it shows up as quiet awareness. Outside, the sky had cleared from the morning's clouds. Golden light spilled across the sidewalk as Jamal stepped through the doors and spotted his dad waiting by the car. He opened the passenger door and slid in without a word. For a long moment, they just sat there. Then Dr. Griffin glanced over, smiling faintly. "How'd it go after I left?" Jamal leaned back. "Different." His dad chuckled. "That a good thing?" Jamal nodded. "Yeah, real good." They pulled away from the school lot, the engine humming beneath them. "Tyler apologized," Jamal said suddenly. Dr. Griffin raised an eyebrow. "That's so?" "Yeah, in front of everyone. It was awkward, but I think he meant it." His dad tapped the steering wheel. "You forgive him?" Jamal thought for a second, watching trees blur by. "I think I did." Dr. Griffin smiled, proud but measured. "That's bigger than you know." As they drove, Jamal looked out at the neighborhood. Same houses, same streets, but now they felt different, less like a place he'd been dropped into, more like a place he could belong to. That night, Jamal sat at his desk, staring at a blank piece of paper. He had an assignment: write a reflection on what he learned during career day. He tapped his pencil against the desk, once, twice. Then he began. "Today I learned that telling the truth isn't always easy, especially when people don't believe in you. But sometimes, standing in your truth is the most powerful thing you can do. My dad showed me that being smart doesn't mean being loud. It means being steady, being ready, being proud even when the world doubts you. I saw what strength looks like today, and it looks like my father." He paused, then added, "It also looks like me." He folded the paper and placed it into his folder. The next morning, something unexpected happened. As Jamal entered the school building, he noticed a new display on the wall outside the main office. A large poster read, "What do you want to be?" Underneath were photos of real-life professionals, doctors, artists, engineers. And there, in the center, was a printed photo of Dr. Griffin standing in front of the class, taken by one of the staff during the visit. Below it was a quote in bold letters. "Don't assume greatness has a look. Sometimes it walks quietly into the room and changes everything." Dr. Howard Griffin. Jamal stood frozen for a moment, then slowly smiled. He moved to his locker. A few kids waved. Elijah fist-bumped him in passing. Anna leaned in and whispered, "My dad said your dad is like a literal genius." Jamal laughed. "I guess." Even Tyler gave a small nod from down the hall. He didn't say anything, but maybe that was okay for now. During second period, Ms. Patterson paused the class. "I'd like to read something," she said, holding up a sheet of paper. "It's from Jamal's career day reflection. I got his permission." Jamal's eyes widened. He hadn't expected this. She read it word for word. The room was silent. When she finished, she looked up. "I think we all learned something yesterday, about assumptions, about courage, about listening better." Her eyes met Jamal's. "Thank you for teaching us." It wasn't just a compliment. It was a recalibration. From that day forward, the energy around Jamal changed. Not because he became popular or started bragging, but because people started seeing him, and he started seeing himself in a different light. He joined the science club. Kids actually asked for his help in math. He no longer shrank in his seat when speaking. There was pride in his posture now. And every once in a while, when someone new asked, "What does your dad do?" he smiled, calm and proud. He helped send people to the moon. But deep down, he knew the truth. That day, it wasn't his dad who changed the room. It was both of them.